Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. My name is Killian. I am co-founder at Ruby Reese and I will also be your host. I will shortly be joined by my guest, Vanessa, to talk about a really interesting topic. And I suppose for this episode this week, I've been thinking an awful lot about how amazing it is that our community of dog professionals and doggy world has so many people that have expertise in so many different areas. And I know we keep rabbiting on about how we certainly think that it's great to build up a team of experts that know what they're talking about surrounding your dog's life, and you know this can be really valuable way to help you along with your dog and their long-term care, I guess. And I suppose in our community, we have a really diverse level of expertise, and Vanessa, who many of you will remember from a previous episode a couple of weeks ago where we spoke about choosing the best dog, I guess, or the best fit of dog to your own lifestyle. Vanessa from Perfect Paws also really wanted to speak about a different topic. So the one that I just mentioned was a topic that's close to her heart, but also a very different topic, being the connection between dogs and dolphins. And we've compared and contrasted them in our wonderful chat that you will now have the opportunity to listen into. Hello, Vanessa. Welcome back to Tuesday Talks with Ruby Reese. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us for a second episode.
Oh yes, Killian, I'm very excited about this one. I really am.
You really know how to get me hooked for a cool episode title, Dogs and Dolphins. Can you maybe introduce where this kind of topic came from?
Okay, so a little bit of backstory for this one.
Please.
And I'll have to go back a good bit, but as I hope, if I'm going on too much, just tell me to stop. Back when I came back from Canada in 2005, and I had worked with dogs and I was in Canada, I came back here, and a few weekends we decided, why don't we go down to Kerry and see Fungi, who sadly is gone now. And we went down and we went to see Fungi, and I had an amazing time out in the boat. I saw him and he came around the boat and he flipped in the air and did all sorts of things for us. And when I came in from the boat, I said to my husband at the time, he can't be the only one, can he? I said, it just can't be. It's just not, it can't be just the only phenomenon that he's the only solitary dolphin. And he isn't. I found out that there was two more. One further up the coast in Clare, and there was one in Tory Island in Donegal. And I decided, right, we have to go to Clare and meet the other one there. So we got ourselves cheap little wetsuits. I was already a very strong ocean swimmer, but we took a cheap little wetsuits and we headed out to West Clare, to a little place called White Strand, and we were told that's where this dolphin is. And this dolphin was a female. And we went and we got into the water, no sign of her, got out. All of a sudden we saw a diving boat returning, and we saw her at the front of the diving boat. So we went in, and I can't explain the experience we had with her. It was very different to Fungi. She's much more serene, and she had no problem coming like this up to your face, whereas Fungi tend to keep his distance.
Yes.
And I was hooked on her from there and then. From that moment on, I was hooked on her, so I had to get the wetsuit. I then had to do a free diving course because I wanted to swim like her. And then I took a diploma in marine biology. And 16 years later, I'm still diving with her on the West Coast.
Amazing.
Whenever I get a chance. Before I had my son, I was with her nearly every second weekend. And every summer holiday was spent with her as well. Now that I have my son, it's harder to get to her these days. I was with her actually just in May. And I had an amazing time with her. But I noticed over the years that I was swimming with her that she had a great curiosity in dogs. And any dogs that would come to where she was and they would go into the water, she would just become obsessed with them and swim around underneath them and she would blow bubbles through her blowhole up onto their bellies. And dogs equally became as obsessed with her as she was with them. And dogs would come regularly to see her and go into the water and swim with her. And then I found out the dog in the dolphin in Tory Island in Donegal had a very strong bond and a relationship with the golden retriever, who
Hmm.
would come every single day. His name was Ben, and he used to come to the harbour every single day and jump off the harbour into the water with her and swim around, the two of them together in the water. And as I started to research that and look at it, I noticed that was actually happening everywhere where there were dolphins. That there
No
were people
way.
going out on boats and their dogs would join them on the boats, and the dolphins would come and greet the boats, and the dogs would greet the dolphins, and the dogs would go in and start to swim with the dolphins. And I just thought, this is incredible. Why do they only strike up bonds with humans and dogs?
Mm.
Dolphins. They only want to know us. And dogs, they don't really form any sort of relationship with anything else off the land that comes towards them. It's only dolphins and dogs that seem to have, or humans and dogs that seem to have these bonds. So when I did my diploma in marine biology, I started to learn a little bit about the origins of dolphins. And it's believed through looking at fossils over hundreds of thousands of years that dolphins have basically descended from a prehistoric dog called an onyx that slowly evolved back into the ocean. And the reason they're able to see this is because when you look at the skeletal frame, I have my little dolphin here so I can show you.
Hmm.
When you look at the skeletal frame of a dolphin in the area called, this is the peduncle, which is from the back of the dorsal fin down to the flukes. These are the flukes. This area here, there's a vertebrae that travels through here down to
Hmm.
the fluke. But just here, there's two tiny little bones loose, just hanging loose in that area. That implies that there was once a pelvis there
Hmm.
and back legs. There were hind legs. And then in the pectoral fins, these little fins here, they actually have bones that resemble, they look like four fingers, like hands, which implies that they had paws at some stage. So, and through fossilization, they can see the development from this land animal to this animal here. And they believe it's the onyx, a prehistoric dog. So this might be why the relationships between dogs and dolphins are quite good, because they recognize their traits in each other. You know, having said that, the behavioral traits between them are not very similar. But
Okay.
there's something there that just, we can't quite work it out yet. There's something there between the two breeds, the two
And
species.
when you mentioned this topic to me, number one, I was fascinated by it. But number
Mm,
two, I had to go and do a little bit of Googling
mm,
myself. The minute you type into Google, dolphin skeleton, dolphin x-ray,
mm.
dolphin paws, you can see on any close-up that their
The
flippers
bones.
literally
Mm,
have got, it's like little hands. Like, I mean,
yeah,
you just couldn't. Anyone listening in, go and Google it
yeah.
the minute you
It
can,
doesn't
because
make
it's
sense for those bones to be there because they're completely encased in that flesh. So why are they there? And there's also that little hang thumb at the back, just like a dog paw. And then you see that pelvic bone that's still there for a pelvis they don't have. It doesn't
yeah.
exist anymore. So they definitely had four legs at some point. Yeah.
And this is the same with all marine mammals, right? Isn't it? Like the whales
Yeah.
as well. I think that
The whales as well.
from what I could see, that the science community believes that we all kind of evolved from lizards from the sea onto land, and then
That's right. And then some of us went back.
went
Mm,
back. Exactly,
yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
which is fascinating as well.
it is. Yeah.
So okay, so we've got ancient history, we've got the
Yeah.
land animals, um, and this connection. And you say that this happens around the world, so there's examples from literally every continent,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
happens everywhere.
absolutely. You know, for some reason, dogs just love to jump into the ocean if they see dolphins. They like to swim with them. You know, even my own Ziggy here. My Ziggy has been in with Dusty. He has swum around with her. My dachshund wasn't quite the same. My dachshund was quite clingy and jealous,
Hmm.
so she actually didn't like her. But I actually do have a photograph of her with her two front paws standing on the beak of the dolphin,
No.
and the dolphin just remaining so still in desperation to try and make friends with her. But
Hmm.
Koopy was not having it. Koopy was just jealous
Yeah.
because it took me away from her and she didn't like that. So, but Ziggy has been in with her many times swimming with her. He can't so much now because he's too old. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was in with her quite a lot when he was younger. And his own mother, his birth mother, was also in with her a lot as well.
Hmm.
You know,
And you mentioned, so they kind of understand each other's, at least their play, let's say, or they can come to some sort of a mutual understanding, but the behavior is quite different.
The behavior is very different. I
Hmm.
don't know if it's an understanding or just a curiosity about each other.
Okay.
Like they see something in each other that they recognize, but they
Hmm.
may not know what that is. But they just like to be in each other's company. Well, the one thing we do know about dolphins and dogs is that they're both very playful
Hmm.
and childlike, and they love to play. And I think that's one of the reasons they like being together, because they're actively engaged in that childlike play with each other.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, and it just, when you see them together, it's just so lovely to watch. I've never seen a dolphin attack a dog, and I've never seen a dog attack a dolphin. They just seem to just go into the water and say, "Hey, let's just be buddies. Let's just do this." They're like little hippies together in the
Hmm.
water. It's really lovely to watch. You know?
And I think having seen fungi myself
Yeah,
and experienced this, I think this kind of spark of playfulness is kind of
yeah.
what it ignites in us as well when we see dolphins play, isn't
It
it?
does. Dolphins just have this incredible pull on
Hmm.
people. They just, I don't know what it is they do to you. And when you've been in contact with a wild one, not the ones in captivity,
Mm.
they're very different. They're not the same as what we have in the wild. The ones in captivity are, they're miserable. They
Mm.
really are. And when you come to face with one in the wild and face to face with one in captivity, you can see the big difference between them. They're almost like a zombie, the ones that are in tanks. But
Mm.
the ones in the wilds, they have that option to leave if they don't
Yeah.
want to be with you. They can go anytime they like. Um, but they just, and I don't know what it is about them, but the minute you see one, you just suddenly feel so overjoyed. You're like, oh my God, I'm seeing this creature. And then when you see the giant baleen whales, which are your humpback whales, fin whales, blue whales, minke whales, and when you see those, you just can't believe you're seeing it. It's like an angel just appeared before you for the
Mm.
first time and you're seeing it. Whatever they do to you, they just capture you, and it does not let go of you once it sucks you in.
Yeah.
You can't get out of it. You're in it for life, you know. And that's what happened with me and a small group of people who actually go to Dusty. We were sucked in, and we, it's like a cult. We can't get out of it. We're
Yeah.
in, and that's it, you know. And I think it does the same thing to the dogs, because the dogs return whenever they can. This dog in Tory Island had to go every single day to be with this dolphin. You
Mm.
know,
Came
eventually that
part
dolphin
of their
actually
lives.
left. It left the bay. I think it came in when it was very young to Tory Island,
Mm.
and I think maybe its pod migrated through, and it found its pod and went on and never came back. You know, so I'd say Ben the dog is probably long gone now at this stage, because that was a good few years. That was back in 2007, 2008. That was happening.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, mm,
And you mentioned about the pod, so I suppose it's interesting when
yeah,
we think about dogs, they have kind of their pack mentality,
mm,
at least. I know they don't always get that these days, but
yeah,
they've got the pack, and then dolphins have their pod. Do you think there's
they
kind
do.
of some similarities in how dogs and dolphins live?
No,
No.
absolutely none whatsoever. No,
Yeah.
um, dogs. The pack is quite. It's actually quite simple.
Hmm.
The way dog packs work, it's not as complex as a dolphin pod.
Yeah.
Dolphins are actually much more similar to us as humans,
Hmm.
because they form social groups very similar to us. They have friends, they have family members, mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers. They work very much the same way we do.
Mm.
Um, the young stay with their mothers for quite a long time, unlike other animals where they only stay for maybe 10, 12, 13, 14 weeks or a few months and then they move on. Young dolphins tend to stay with their mothers for maybe 4 or 5, 6, 7 years before
Okay.
they move on. And in some cases, like orcas, killer whales, who are actually dolphins, not whales,
Hmm.
um, they actually stay in the company of their mothers for life. They stay with them
Yeah.
forever in social groups. Um, and they have language, which of course our dogs don't. Our dogs
Hmm.
just woof, growl. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Dolphins have a complex language, very much like human language. And there's a wonderful lady out in Bahamas called Denise Hertzing, who's been studying dolphin language now for nearly 30 years. And she's determined that they have names, individual names like we do, that they can talk to each other like we do. And she's trying to learn that language so that we can communicate with them. Whereas with dogs, That's never going to happen because they
Yeah,
don't have a complex language. They just make a series of little sounds
sure.
that convey a certain thing, and that's it. But dolphins, it's very complex and complicated, but it's fascinating to watch it, you know.
Definitely. It sounds so, so interesting. And
Mm,
have we kind of, I presume there's been loads of research done on the intelligence of dolphins.
mm.
Can we kind of say, I know it's quite difficult, but can we say how intelligent they are? I know that there's a lot of theories put out there that dogs you can kind of put into a category of maybe a 2 or 3 year old child, usually,
Yes.
as a rough estimate. Kind of has something similar been said around dolphins, or is it still quite
It's
unresearched?
it's now there's quite a lot of research into it, but most
Mm,
of the research that's been done regarding their intelligence, unfortunately, has been done in captivity, which
yes.
to me is false research.
Hmm.
It's not going to give you
Hmm.
a true conclusion because those dolphins are mentally unwell that are in those
Yeah.
tanks. But from my own personal experience, I've been quite in awe of the intelligence of the dolphin around me.
Hmm.
How in touch with her own environment she is compared to us as humans. You know, she keeps herself protected and safe at all cost in a very hostile environment. Whereas
Okay.
us humans, we make ridiculously stupid mistakes all the time. These animals
Hmm.
don't seem to do that. They don't seem to do it. I've heard people say to me, oh, I saw Dusty and she was right up in the shallow water. Oh, is that not a stupid thing to do? I said, no, like this animal is the master of the shallows. She knows exactly what she's doing. She also has that echolocation,
Hmm.
which really helps her a lot. And that echolocation tells her things about you when you're in the water with her. That to me, it's almost like meeting an alien. It's like meeting something from another planet
Okay.
to sit and be in a dolphin's company in the wild because they're just unbelievably intelligent. I actually think they're far more advanced than we are. Far more advanced. They respect their own environment, they don't destroy it.
Hmm.
Everything
Which is.
they do ensures their survival. Everything we do is actually taking it away from us. They're much more intelligent than we are. You
Hmm.
know, it's hard to explain it until you're face to face with it. And you look into that eye, and that eye is working you out. And then that echolocation scans you. And what she's doing is she's looking at you inside to see what she can see. Because when she looks at you, that echolocation comes out. She basically, and the best way to explain it is her blowhole has on the top of her head, that little blowhole, which is her nose, has two little pieces of skin
Hmm.
that she can vibrate and manipulate with air that makes sounds. And it emits that sound through the front of the head there, which is called a melon. So it's a fatty tissue, and it's like conducting electricity, and it emits the sound out into the water and creates kind of a current out into the
Hmm.
water that bounces off everything. And when it comes back, she accepts it through her lower jaw. It's called the acoustic window, the bottom jaw, and through the melon. And it gives her pictures of how the environment ahead of her looks. So even if she can't use her eyes, she can still see everything. But the fascinating thing about it is it gives her a form of X-ray vision. So when she looks at us, she can see your heart beating. She can
Hmm.
see the electrical impulses through your nervous system. She can see your lungs expanding and contracting. I don't look like this when she looks at me. I look quite transparent.
Yeah.
So she can
She
see my
knows how we
bones.
work. Yeah.
She can see everything. It's just incredible. She can work her entire environment using that. And dogs, unfortunately, their version of that is their scent receptors
Yes.
in their nose, which is no use to a dolphin because beneath the surface there is no smell.
Hmm.
Um, but your dogs have those billions of scent receptors in their nose, so in a way they can pick up the same things, but they do it through scent.
Hmm.
So they can pick up things like illness in a person. The dolphin, I'll tell you a very strange story. When I was swimming in Aran Islands with Dusty, and she started to behave very strangely around me. She kept going around my hips and going around me, and I knew she was using her echolocation. And then she started to swim alongside me, and I'm a free diver, so I dive without any tanks. And I hold my breath, and she brought me down to the seabed, and she would lie on her belly on the seabed very quietly looking at me, and she started singing. And I was like, this is really strange. I
Hmm.
didn't know what was happening. And I came back up to the surface of the water, and a friend of mine was sitting on the harbour, and I said, she's whistling, she's singing, she's singing. And he goes, she knows something, because he'd been swimming with her for a lot longer than me.
Hmm.
He'd been with her since 1999. Um, and she brought me down again. And as I was getting out of the water, I went, "Oh, I think I might be pregnant."
Oh, no
And
way.
I was.
Okay, and
And
her
she knew.
echolocation, obviously,
She
she
had picked
knew.
it up.
Yeah.
She had picked up the embryo. She knew it was there.
Hmm.
And I went to the doctor, and the doctor did a test and said, "You are, but I mean, how did you know? Because barely, you are barely, you're only just pregnant. Like, how did
Yeah.
you know?" I said, "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." And she said, "Try me." And I told her, and she said, "That's fascinating."
Mm.
She knew. She knew. The same way as a dog with scent receptors would pick it up as well, but in a different way, be through a hormonal change that would create a different scent on you. And the dog would pick it up that way. But the dolphin picks it up through echolocation. She can actually physically see it,
Yeah,
you know?
that's
Mm.
really really fascinating, and I believe it about
Yeah.
dogs as well.
Mm.
We had
Mm-hmm.
we got Ruby during COVID. Like lots of people got dogs
Mm.
for companionship during the pandemic, and we had lots of people. Well, no, we had people when it was allowed over to visit us, and
Mm.
she had always delightedly said hello to every new person coming into the apartment, except for one female friend who she had a really, really unusual relationship with the first half an hour, 40 minutes that they were
Mm.
there. We couldn't suss it out. We were saying, what is wrong with her and this person that's come in? And eventually the girl came out and said, well, actually, we're here to tell you some good news. We're pregnant.
Yeah.
But Ruby had picked up on it. She had
Yeah.
definitely, we're
Oh, she
100%
will.
certain, because she had never treated anyone like with such, it wasn't that she disliked her, it was that it was respect, it was that, oh, I can't be boisterous around this person, and it seemed like she was definitely acting differently, so I believed that.
Yeah, and I definitely think female dogs pick up on it faster than
Mm,
male. As female dogs have that little bit more of a maternal side to them that they pick up on it very quickly in a female.
yeah.
But the other thing I think they pick up on as well, and it's one thing that dogs and dolphins have in common, is they pick up on energy
Hmm.
as well. So your energy is very important. Now, people used to come to me when I was on the beach after I'd be swimming with the dolphin and say, "We'd really like to swim with her. Have you any advice?" And I'd say, just go in feeling positive. Whatever you do,
Mm,
do not go in feeling negative, because she will remove you from the
hmm.
water, and she will physically remove you. She'll
Mm,
hit you to get you out, because she wants only positive, lovely people who go into the water and enhance her environment, not make it worse for her.
hmm.
And that's the same with dogs. Dogs very much pick up on energy. They know if somebody's nice or not when they meet them. Um, or they can tell if you're not okay. And she was the same. She could tell if you weren't okay. I think that they definitely have in common. It's very similar in both. That
Hmm.
they are, and quite empathic, like dogs are as well. They pick up on all of that very quickly. And yeah, I did know the same story with me with my dog Ziggy. We called
Mm,
Ziggy the wolf spirit because he just seems like an ancient old soul. And I had a party here one night at my house, and we had about 20 people here. And one guy came in, very good friend, and Ziggy got up and sat on him and stared into his face.
mm.
And he said to me, "Vanessa, what's going on here with the dog? What's the story?" I said, "I have no idea." I said, "I have no idea. Ziggy doesn't do that to everybody. Is there anything going on with you?" And he just went quiet. And he says, "No, no, nothing, nothing." And then at the end of the night, he told me he was leaving. He just found out his brother had cancer, and he was feeling very low. So Ziggy was
Hmm.
sitting on him to try and say, "I've got you. It's okay. We're all right." The dog picked up on it straight away. Straight away.
Definitely. And
Mm.
I think lots of people will recognize this from their dogs, or even if
Mm.
anyone has horses
Yeah.
listening in. I think if particularly if you've gotten to know a horse that's very easily spooked, if you're stressed or frightened, or in any of these kind of
Mm.
negative moods on an
Mm-hmm.
already easily spookable horse, like you're in for a wild ride, literally,
Yeah.
because that
Mm.
horse is going to get spooked for sure. You definitely have to be in the right mindset, and kind
Yeah.
of they pick up on everything.
Well, I realized that when I was swimming with the dolphin, that my energy was very, very important. And it was only
Hmm.
because I learned a very valuable lesson one day when I was with her. And I was in a quite a secluded dive spot where we had to cut down through farmland to get to where she was.
Hmm.
And two girls came that day into the water. My cousin was sitting on the rocks. She was with me that day. And I was in the water with the dolphin. And I came up to shallow just to say hello to the two ladies. And they weren't the nicest two people I've ever met. They
Mm.
proceeded to pick up baby moon jellyfish. You probably know those little jellyfish, the little
Yeah.
purple rings inside them. They're not
Hmm.
stingers, they don't sting. They started to pick up baby ones and throw them at the rocks while they were talking to me, and I was deeply offended.
Mm.
And I didn't want to say anything though, because I found out that one of the girls that I was speaking to, her father owned the farmland that we had to cut through in order
Yeah.
to get to Dusty, so I knew I was not going to be able to say anything, or else I wouldn't be able to get through anymore.
Mm.
Dusty was there. She was swimming round and round and round and round me, and I was feeling more and more negative because of the things they were saying and what they were doing to these little jellyfish. And then all of a sudden she swam away from me, and I thought, she's leaving because there's bad vibes here.
Mm. Mm.
And that's not what she was doing. In my head I was going, God, I'd love to punch these two girls. And so she did it for me. She went out and she swam way out, and then she turned around and I saw her dorsal fin starting to, it would do this across the water. I
Mm-hmm.
could see she was picking up speed, and she picked up full speed, and she slammed into the two of them with her beak and knocked them on their backs. And
Jeez.
I thought, oh my God, this isn't good. And I
Yeah.
ran forward to help them. I got one out,
Yeah.
and she went back out and she did it again to the second one and got them
Wow.
out. And she hurt them pretty
Yeah.
bad. They were
Yeah.
really shook up. They got
Yeah.
a fright because she's a very large animal. She's about
Mm.
10.5 feet in length. And that peduncle, that is all muscle. So
Yeah.
when she swims very fast, that's about 300 pounds of force coming in. And that beak is like a rock. So if it hits you, you're in trouble. And the two of them went out and they went up over the hill with their tails between their legs and were very shook up.
Mm.
And I realised that was the valuable lesson I realised, if you don't stay positive, she's going to feel it from you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to display exactly how you're feeling, but she's actually going to display it
Yeah.
to
And that's
whoever it is that you're not happy with. And I
yeah.
realised, whew, I have to stay positive no matter what, even, or if somebody's bothering me, get out of the water and take that energy out with you. Don't
And
leave
it's
it there.
it's a matter of life or death for them in the sea, presumably. You know, they have to be able to pick up on
Oh
what's
yeah.
going on around them,
Oh
and you know,
yeah.
why is everything getting scared around here? You know, it must mean that there's trouble brewing, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a survival thing. It
That
must be.
echolocation was obviously picking up in changes in my body that were saying everything's not okay.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know, and because she doesn't have other dolphins, I think she sees the people that she's befriended as her pod.
Of course,
So
yeah,
she's very close to everybody that's in that pod. There's only a small group of maybe about 10 people that
yeah.
she's accepted. And she just, that energy just changed in me, and she reacted as I
Mm.
was saying in my head I would love to react. She did it for me.
Crazy.
And I was quite shocked. I was quite shook up as well. I didn't see it coming. And I realised now that, you know, the minute there's a bit of a negative feeling coming on, get out. Get
Mm-hmm.
out and just get it out of your system and then go back in.
Yes, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if she hurts somebody, it'll turn bad for her, not
Oh,
for
of
me.
course. Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way it always is, and it's always the animal's fault. It's
Yeah,
never the human.
unfortunately, yes.
You know?
And
Yeah.
and you mentioned about pods as well, and humans potentially being seen as her pod in her
Yeah.
own mind at least. Do other pods, wild pods, kind of pass through the area
They do.
and interact with her, and does that work out kind of pretty well, or how does that? Or do you
To be
know?
honest with you, I love her to bits,
Mm.
and she's beautiful, but I would love her to find her place in a pod and leave,
Mm.
because that would be normal. The way she's living is not normal for her species.
Yeah, yeah.
And quite a few there are quite a few isolated dolphins. She's not the only one, solitaries as we call them. She's not the only one around the world. We don't know why they're solitary or what's happened to cause them to be solitary. But she would interact with pods from time to time. And there was one very clear interaction when she was in White Strand, but she left White Strand a few days later, so we don't know if it was a positive or negative impact. Whether it was with a bull, with a male dolphin who came
Okay.
in and had his way.
Yeah.
And she left and went and isolated herself in this dive spot that I'm talking about that she was in. And around December, I think it was 2010, we suspected that she might be pregnant, but we weren't absolutely sure, so it's not very clear. It's only in the last month. They're pregnant for 12 months, dolphins. So it's only in the last month that the tummy tends to drop down. But
Okay.
that was in December, so nobody was really in swimming. But a newborn dolphin did wash up dead late December 2010, not far away. So we think to this day it was hers.
Okay.
You know, but unfortunately she had no support system.
Yeah.
because she's not in a pod, and they do have midwives and other female dolphins that will help them when they're giving birth, and she had nobody. So the chance of that baby dolphin surviving, and her having no experience with other dolphins really, that it didn't work out well for her. But we were not sure to this day whether it is or not. They said they did DNA tests, but I don't know if they did
Yeah.
or not, and they matched it to her. But
Yeah.
that's the hard part of it for her, being solitary.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So
She
it
doesn't have
does
the
show that
support.
there is interaction there, all right, with other dolphins. It did prove that.
Yeah.
If the baby was hers,
Definitely, yeah.
And Fungi was known for it as well. Fungi interacted with dolphins every year.
Exactly, yeah. I've definitely heard those stories. All right, so that's kind of where that question came from. And so we mentioned quite a lot about echolocation, and we mentioned about dogs having a great sense of smell. How are dolphins' other senses?
Quite fascinating. Actually, I've done talks on dolphins over the years since I started diving with her, and I actually refer to them as superheroes of the sea. And when I do my talks, I incorporate things like Superman, Aquaman, all these characters into the talk, because they just seem to be just these perfect beings on all levels. They have this incredible echolocation, incredible speed. They're just incredible creatures. They just seem to be a perfect engineering of an animal that I've ever seen. All their senses are very heightened. Of course, sense of smell. No, there's no, like, even in sharks, you will see receptors, electrical receptors that work like a scent receptor that can suss out things like blood in the water, stuff like that. Dolphins don't have that. They don't really need it because of that echolocation. And their eyesight is actually pretty good. And their hearing is amazing. They can hear for up to 30 kilometers. It's just incredible. So, and their speed, they can swim. I mean, you've seen them. They catch up to ships, and they're able to bow ride the front of the ships at incredible speed. And they can jump out of the water and stay right there. Now, they're riding on the water coming over the side, over the bow, so they are getting a free ride in that, they're surfing in it. But to be able to do that, they're pretty incredible creatures. There really is nothing wrong with them. They're just a perfect piece of engineering.
They're doing well for themselves in all the senses. They've got a lot of superpowers, like you say. And I suppose working with we know that dogs work a lot in therapy and assistance work with humans. Is there some examples of this in the world with dolphins? And do you think that there could be potential for this in the future, or is it more difficult with them kind of needing to be more wild, really?
It's a very controversial topic. I don't know if you ever heard of Winter, the dolphin, that the movie Dolphin Tale was made about.
Oh, right, okay.
Winter was a dolphin who had become entangled in lobster pots when she was only a baby on the coast of Florida, and she washed up on the beach, and she was rescued by an aquarium called Clearwater Marine Aquarium. And unfortunately, the tail was so badly infected that they had to amputate her flukes. Some of us believe they should really have put her to sleep, because she spent the rest of her life living in a very small tank, being an assistance therapy dolphin for amputees, human amputees, who would come and swim with her in this very small little tank. And I had seen footage of her, very sad, sitting upright like this, on a wall in the corner of the tank, afraid to move. And she would just sit there for hours. She had no real quality of life. And a wonderful Irishman, actually, I think he's from Carlow or Waterford, it's in Leinster, I know he's from Leinster, made her a prosthetic fluke for her tail, because what was happening was she was trying to swim with her peduncle going from side to side like a fish, but they need to go like this. He made her prosthetic, but it was quite uncomfortable for her, so she didn't have it on that much. But her quality of life was dreadful. But she was being used as an assistance animal for humans. And there's quite a few assistance programs out there and mainly in the US, where people can come to places like, I think there's one called Discovery Cove, where people can bring autistic children in, and it's supposed to help them in some way. I don't believe it has any effect if it's in captivity, because in captivity they are like zombies. Their brain has just gone to mush, because that echolocation, when they first go into a tank, they try to use it, and that echolocation is used to being able to travel miles and miles and miles out from them.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden they're in a tank, so it hits off the walls and comes back and hits them, and it creates literally a white wall where they can't see properly anymore. And quite often when you look in captivity, you'll see them doing a thing called spy hopping, which is when the head comes out like that, out of the water, and they'll bob up and down. And that's just desperation to not let the echolocation bounce off the walls. So they're
Okay.
desperate to get away from that. So I don't know that it works in captivity, because the dolphins and the killer whales that are in captivity are very unwell.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just even bringing children on boats out to sea, to just see them, will have far more of a positive effect than doing it in a tank.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
For
when
both
the
the humans
dolphins,
and the dolphins.
yeah, because what fascinates me is all these experiences, all these places that do this, they're all on the coast.
Mm.
And if people were just to hop on a boat right there and just go a few miles out, they'll see these animals anyway. Because
Yeah,
dolphins love us.
I
They
was
love
going to
our
say
boats.
you could probably do it on a jet ski.
You could, they love us. They love our boats. They love us. And they will come in out of curiosity anyway. And you can do that right here in Ireland. You can do that in Cork.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't believe that in Ireland. They think, fungi was a rare thing. But he's not. We've got thousands of dolphins in our waters, all different kinds of species of dolphin. And we've 25 species of dolphins and whales living in Irish waters. And most of us don't know that. And you go to West Cork, you'll go out, you'll see something. You will. I
Mm-hmm.
took a private group out many years ago on a boat, and I brought my dog. Actually, my dachshund came with me on the boat, and she sunned herself while we all looked over the edge. And we were very lucky. A pod of a breed called common dolphins, they're small, black and yellow, they're beautiful, came and joined us. And there was about 25 of them around the boat. So for every 25 you have on top, there's another 25 underneath. So it went out and out and out, and there just seemed to be hundreds of them.
Wow.
And there were mothers with tiny babies and everything, and they were there, and I thought, who needs to go to a tank? They're here.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even have to make an effort. They just came and joined us, and they were with us for over an hour. We had an
Yeah.
amazing time with them. So I think assistance therapy on dolphins in tanks does not work. It's a bit of a farce. It's a money-making racket for these places. It is literally just like a circus.
Yeah.
Assistance therapy with a dog is a very different thing. Dogs live in a really beautiful life with people, and these animals are not. As I say, they're they're trapped in the tank for life, not just for your holiday.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And
They're
I
there for
suppose
life.
when you think about it, dogs have gone through 30,000 years of evolution to become dependent on humans, and it was potentially their own choice,
Yeah.
depending on what side of the argument you're sitting on. Maybe they've trained us to look after them. So
Yeah.
that's one thing, but like, dolphins just haven't have
They're
had 0
wild.
years of evolution to
Yeah.
go through that process. So
They're
it's
wild creatures. They're happier at sea. They're happier in the ocean. And actually, anybody who needs assistance from a creature like that, the better to go out into the ocean and actually see them in that lovely environment, that happy environment that they're in. And you'll come away feeling amazing afterwards. Even if you're just on a boat, just watching, it's still an incredible experience to see them. Whereas
absolutely,
the tank,
definitely.
just not the same. It
Yeah.
really isn't.
And it's something I've been saying for years and years. I think our Irish coastline is kind of one of the kind of forgotten gems that we nearly
Yeah.
have in this country. We kind of tend to forget it a little bit.
We do. We have an incredible coastline here.
Mm.
We hear something like a few weeks ago, I think you probably heard this, it was on TikTok and everything, that a great white had been spotted off the west coast of
I
Galway.
did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of us looked at those pictures and we don't believe that was a great white. We believe that was either a mako or it was a poor beagle. And a poor beagle is very similar to a great white, but it's a lot smaller. And it lives quite down, it comes down very deep, so it's unusual for it to come up like that to the surface. But it was too small to be, if it was a great white, it was a juvenile. And for it to have gotten that far, that young, into very cold waters, they don't survive well in cold waters. Great whites need warm tropical waters to live in. That's why they're always down around South Africa and the
Yeah.
coast of
Yeah.
Florida, Hawaii, places like that, for it to last that long. But I mean, we do have bull shark from time to time, and they're known to be quite aggressive as well. We have blue shark in our waters, which are about
Yeah.
9-10 feet long. Beautiful creatures. But we forget about that. We forget that Ireland is an island. And we
Yeah.
have beautiful Atlantic Ocean on one side. There's a rich mineral source for animals to feed.
Loads
We
of
have killer
plankton.
whales. We've killer whales that come through our waters every year. Actually, I think they were in Dingle just recently.
Oh, really?
Humpback whales just came
Yeah.
through Kerry there about 2 weeks ago. Fin whales, we've blue whales. Sometimes, rarely, we've beluga from the Arctic, the white whales. The odd time they come down, but we have a whole array of dolphins. The estuary of Clare is just full of them. Donegal Bay is full of dolphins. And then we've our basking shark as well to come every year.
Hmm.
So we have an incredible country for marine life. We really do. And we're a
Definitely.
sanctuary as well. We protect our marine life, which is really lovely
Yeah.
by law.
Long may it last. Long may it
Oh yeah,
last. The
I
protection of
hope so.
the beautiful coastline
Yeah.
and everything that lives in it. Brilliant. Thank you so, so much for coming on and sharing. Do you have any more
You're
closing
welcome.
thoughts on dolphins and dogs, or have we covered at least the tip of the iceberg, so to speak?
Dolphins and dogs, be kind to all and look after them. That's the best thing I can say. Be kind to all, because someday they may be gone. Either one or the other could be gone, and we'll just be explaining them to our children as, things in books. But I hope that never happens with either.
That's it.
Unfortunately, the dolphins are closer to that than the dogs. So
Let's look after them so they can keep giving back
yeah,
to us from a
absolutely.
wild
And so
perspective.
so dogs and dolphins can keep playing together as well.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much, Vanessa. I appreciate
No
you coming
problem.
on again.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it, and thanks a million for having me on.
Same again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. And once again, a huge thank you to Vanessa for joining us on the podcast this week. It was an absolutely fascinating topic. And if you've enjoyed this topic and would like to follow or subscribe to our channel, we would really, really appreciate you doing so wherever you listen to your podcasts. It is really, really helpful to us because it tells the algorithm that we are providing content that's worth listening to. If you would like to find out a little bit more about what Vanessa gets up to, particularly with Perfect Paws, her dog training, and equally if you would like to figure out more about what we get up to at Ruby Reese, please check out the show notes where you can find all of our details and connect with us on social media and our website as well. Thank you for listening in. We will have another exciting episode for you to listen to coming out next Tuesday morning. And until then, thank you very much for listening and have a lovely week.